Three beautiful friends made a secret deal that turned them into millionaires overnight, but every fortune they gained came from destroying a man's destiny. Everything was working perfectly until they tried it on the wrong man.
Hey besties, welcome to African Tales by Chinua, breathing life into African tales.
Sharon, Chelsea, and Annabel were known everywhere they went, not just because they were beautiful, but because of the strong bond they shared. They had met in their first year at the university. Sharon was calm and thoughtful. Chelsea was bold and outspoken. Annabel was cheerful and full of life. Different personalities, yet they fit together perfectly like pieces of a puzzle. People often noticed their confidence first. They carried themselves well. They worked hard, dressed smartly, and always supported each other. But what truly made them special was their dream. They wanted more from life. Throughout their years in school, they studied together, prayed together, and encouraged each other when things became difficult. Finally, they graduated. But reality came quickly. Weeks turned into months as the three friends searched for jobs. They sent out applications everywhere. Banks, companies, offices, hotels, anywhere that seemed promising. Each time they got an interview invitation, they would celebrate together. "This might be the one," Chelsea would say with excitement. But Nigeria kept happening. At the interviews, things would start normally. Questions about their qualifications, questions about their experience, questions about their skills. Then the tone would slowly change. The man in charge would lean back in his chair and smile in a way that made them uncomfortable. "You are very beautiful," one of them once said to Sharon. "We can help each other," another told Annabel. "I can guarantee this job if you cooperate," one whispered to Chelsea. Each time the promise sounded the same: good salary, fast promotion, comfortable office. But there was always a strong condition. They wanted something in return, something the three friends had already promised themselves they would never give. Every time this happened, Sharon would politely stand up and say, "Thank you, but you can keep your job." Chelsea would walk out shaking her head. Annabel would take a deep breath and walk out. But as the months passed, the pressure grew heavier. Bills needed to be paid. Family members kept asking questions. Friends from school were already posting pictures of their new jobs online. One evening, the three of them sat quietly in their small apartment. The room felt heavy with silence. That night felt heavier than the others. The girls sat quietly in their small living room. The ceiling fan turned slowly above them, pushing warm air around the room. No one spoke for a long time. The day had been another disappointment. Annabel finally broke the silence. "I'm tired," she said softly. Sharon nodded. "Me too." Chelsea sighed and leaned back on the chair. "It's like we are running in circles." They had done everything right. They went to school. They studied hard. They graduated with good results. Yet months had passed and nothing had changed. Annabel rubbed her hands together. "We can't keep living like this," she said. "We need to do something." Sharon looked at Chelsea for a moment as if remembering something. "Chelsea," she said slowly, "how about that woman you once talked about?" Chelsea frowned. "Which woman?" "The priestess," Sharon replied. Chelsea suddenly laughed. "You two almost ate me alive that day," she said, shaking her head. Sharon gave a small smile. "That was before things got this hard." Annabel leaned forward slightly. You said she helps people become rich, right?" Chelsea's smile faded. "I said people go to her when they want wealth," she replied. The room became quiet again. Annabel spoke calmly. Right now we have tried everything else. Sharon nodded slowly. Every manager or director wants to sleep with us first, before offering us a job. Something the three friends had refused to give. Annabel looked at both of them. Maybe it's time we take the bull by the horn. Chelsea stared at her. You mean we should actually go and see that woman? Annabel nodded. Yes. Sharon added quietly. At least we will know if there is truly something there. Chelsea was silent for a moment. The idea sounded strange, yet their situation was becoming worse each day. Finally, she sighed. I never thought the day would come when you two would be the ones suggesting it. Annabel stood up. So, we go tomorrow? Sharon nodded immediately. Chelsea looked at both of them and slowly agreed. All right, she said. Tomorrow we visit her. None of them knew exactly what they would find, but in their hearts they believed this visit might finally change their lives. The next morning came faster than they expected. None of them slept well that night. The decision they made kept running through their minds. Still, by sunrise, the three friends were already dressed and ready. Chelsea led the way. The priestess lived on the outskirts of the city. They stopped in front of a small compound surrounded by a tall mud fence. The gate was half open. For a moment, the three friends stood outside, moving. Then Sharon pushed the gate gently. Inside, the air felt different. The compound was quiet. Strange symbols were drawn on the walls, and small clay pots were placed at different corners of the yard. At the center sat a woman. She looked older than they expected. Her eyes were sharp and calm at the same time, as if she already knew why they had come. Welcome, the priestess said slowly. The girls exchanged nervous glances. Chelsea stepped forward first. We came because we need help. The priestess studied them for a moment. You want breakthrough, she said plainly. None of them denied it. Yes, Sharon replied. The woman nodded slowly. There is only one way, she said, but it is not an easy path. The three friends listened carefully. The priestess leaned forward. Your beauty will open doors for you, she said. That is the power you carry. Annabel frowned slightly, trying to understand. What exactly do we have to do? She asked. The priestess spoke clearly. Your assignment is simple. Any man you come across, you will take what belongs to them. Sharon raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? The priestess looked directly at them. Their destinies. The words hung in the air. You are not meant to love them, the priestess added firmly. Love will destroy the mission. Your only task is to collect destinies. Chelsea swallowed slowly. So we just take what was meant for them? Yes. Annabel looked at Sharon and Chelsea. The idea sounded strange, yet the promise behind it was powerful. Once you begin, the priestess warned, no going back. Annabel took a deep breath. If this will change our lives, we are ready. The priestess watched them carefully. Then she smiled faintly. Very well. The meeting ended shortly after. The three friends walked out of the compound without saying much. But deep inside, each of them knew something had already begun. A dangerous journey they could no longer turn away from. After their visit to the priestess, the three friends began to follow the assignment they were given. Sharon, Chelsea, and Annabel started meeting different men in clubs, lounges, and expensive restaurants. Their beauty and confidence made it easy for men to notice them. Soon, many men became deeply attached to them. But the girls never allowed themselves to fall in love. They remembered the priestess's warning. Their mission was simple. Take the destinies and move on. Within a few months, their lives completely changed. Money started flowing into their lives. Opportunities appeared from nowhere. The girls who once struggled to survive were now living in comfort and luxury. They went on vacations and enjoyed the good life. For the first time in years, Sharon, Chelsea, and Annabel believed they had finally won, after so many years of destroying men with great destinies, bringing men of calibers to nothing and becoming more and more rich. Then, one afternoon, changed everything. Chelsea had gone to a large supermarket to buy a few things. She pushed her cart slowly through the aisles, picking items without much thought. Then suddenly she bumped into someone. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said quickly. The man turned. "It's okay," he replied with a calm smile. For a moment, both of them froze. Chelsea felt something strange move through her chest. It was a feeling she had never experienced before, a quiet pull she couldn't explain. The man looked at her carefully. "Are you all right?" he asked. Yes, I am," Chelsea replied, trying to smile. "My name is Lawrence," he said, extending his hand. "Chelsea," she answered, shaking it. They stood there for a moment, both strangely aware of each other. Lawrence chuckled softly. "I think that's the most interesting way I've ever met someone." Chelsea laughed lightly. "Running people over with a shopping cart." "Exactly," he said, laughing hard. They talked for a few minutes. The conversation flowed easily, like two people who had known each other longer than they actually had. Finally, Lawrence said, "Can we stay in touch?" Chelsea hesitated for a brief second, then nodded. They exchanged numbers. As they walked away in opposite directions, both of them kept thinking about the moment, and about each other. Lawrence was not like the men Chelsea usually met. To her, he was the only son from a quiet, godly home where prayer was part of daily life. His parents believed strongly that God should be at the center of everything they did. From childhood, Lawrence had grown up learning discipline, kindness, and respect for people. People around him often said one thing about him: God's hand is on that boy. Things always seemed to work in his favor. Doors opened for him, opportunities came at the right time, and more than anything, Lawrence carried a calm spirit that made people trust him easily. Chelsea felt it too. After the day they met at the supermarket, they began talking often. Simple conversations turned into long phone calls. Before long, Lawrence asked her out for dinner. Chelsea agreed. That evening was simple but peaceful. They talked about life, family, and dreams. Lawrence spoke openly about his upbringing and his strong belief in God. Chelsea mostly listened. For the first time in many years, she felt something different inside her, something she could not explain. When the dinner ended, Lawrence drove her home. The car stopped in front of the large house she shared with Sharon and Annabel. "I had a really good time tonight," Lawrence said with a warm smile. Chelsea nodded. "Me too." He paused before speaking again. "I'd like to see you again." Chelsea felt her heart beat faster. "Okay," she replied softly. Lawrence waved goodbye and drove away. Chelsea stood there for a moment watching the car disappear down the street. But as she turned to enter the house, she froze. Sharon and Annabel were already standing at the door. Both of them had clearly seen everything. Sharon folded her arms with a playful smile. Well, look who went out on a date with a new catch and didn't tell us." Annabel laughed. "Chelsea, that man is indeed a good catch." Chelsea tried to stay calm. "He's just someone I met today." Sharon shook her head. "Don't even try that with us. We saw the way he looked at you." Annabel added quickly. And the way he opened the car door for you, too. The two friends exchanged knowing glances. Sharon leaned closer and said jokingly, "That one's destiny will be very sweet." Annabel nodded with a mischievous smile. "With a man like that, we might even get the whole world to ourselves." Chelsea forced a small laugh. "You people are imagining things," she said. "Nothing is going on." Sharon raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Yes," Chelsea replied quickly. And for the first time since they started their dangerous mission, Chelsea found herself protecting a man instead of planning how to destroy him. Days passed, and something about Chelsea began to change. She smiled more often. Sometimes she would sit quietly in the living room, pressing her phone, her face soft with a smile she could not hide. Other times she stepped outside to take calls, speaking in a gentle voice. Whenever Sharon or Annabel walked in, Chelsea quickly locked her phone and acted like nothing was happening. At first the girls ignored it, but they were not blind. One evening Sharon leaned against the kitchen counter and watched Chelsea typing quickly on her phone. "Chelsea," she said slowly. Chelsea looked up. "Hmm?" Sharon crossed her arms. "Who are you smiling with like that?" Chelsea shrugged. "No one." Annabel laughed from the couch. "No one that makes you blush like a schoolgirl lately." Chelsea forced a small smile. "You people are imagining things." But the change was too obvious. A few days later, Sharon and Annabel finally confronted her. They sat her down in the living room. Sharon spoke first. "Chelsea, bring the guy." Chelsea's heart dropped. "What guy?" she asked quietly. Annabel rolled her eyes. "Don't play games with us," Sharon continued, her voice calm but serious. "The man who keeps calling you every night." Chelsea shook her head slowly. "No." The room went silent. Annabel leaned forward. "What do you mean, no?" Chelsea swallowed. "Please, leave him out of this." Sharon's eyebrows lifted in surprise. "Leave him out?" Chelsea nodded quickly. "Lawrence is different." The moment the name left her mouth, Sharon laughed loudly. "Ah," she said, "Chelsea is in love." Annabel burst into laughter too. Chelsea quickly shook her head. "No, I'm not in love." Sharon smiled teasingly. "Then why are you protecting him?" Chelsea struggled to find the words. "There's just something about him," she said softly. "He's not like the others." "I'll bring someone else," she said quickly. "Anyone else. Just not him." The laughter stopped. Sharon's face became serious. "Chelsea," she said firmly, "you know the rules." Annabel added quietly, "We don't pick and choose." Chelsea's voice began to shake. "Please, just this one time." But Sharon shot angrily. "If you don't bring him willingly," she said coldly, "we will do it our own way." Chelsea stared at her in shock. Annabel added, "One way or another," she said calmly. "Lawrence's destiny will enter our hands. After coming this far, you want to spoil things for us? No way." The words felt like knives in Chelsea's chest. "No," she whispered. But the girls had already made up their minds. As they walked away, Sharon spoke one last time. "You have just 3 days to turn him in, or—" Then they left her sitting there. The house suddenly felt empty and quiet. Chelsea slowly sank to the floor. Tears filled her eyes. She cried bitterly, covering her face with her hands. "If only I met you before all this," she whispered through her tears. For the first time since they started their dangerous journey, Chelsea wished she had never taken that path at all. That night, Lawrence was fast asleep. The house was quiet and the night felt calm, but in the middle of his sleep, something strange began to happen. In his dream, he suddenly found himself in a dark room. The place was cold and silent. There were no windows, no light, only shadows moving around him. Lawrence tried to move, but he couldn't. His hands and legs were tied. Then he heard laughter. 3 women stood in front of him. Their faces were not very clear, but he could see them pressing him down, holding him tightly as if they were trying to take something from him. They kept laughing. The sound of their laughter echoed in the dark room. Lawrence struggled, trying to break free, but his body felt weak. Suddenly, he woke up. His heart was beating fast and sweat covered his face. The room was quiet again, but the dream felt too real. Without wasting time, Lawrence got down from his bed and began to pray. "Every evil attack against my life, I cancel it in the name of God," he prayed. He continued praying against every demonic attack and every blood-sucking spirit. Even though he did not fully understand the dream, something inside him knew he needed to pray. The next afternoon, while Chelsea was out, Sharon and Annabel drove back to the priestess's shrine. The priestess sat calmly, as if she had been expecting them. "What brought you two?" the priestess asked. Sharon stepped forward. "We need help." The priestess watched them closely. "What happened?" Annabel spoke this time. "Chelsea has found a man, a very strong one." Sharon added quickly, "His destiny is fresh, very fresh. We can feel it." "But Chelsea refuses to bring him in," Annabel said with frustration. "She says the man is different." The priestess gave a slow smile. "So, she is already getting attached." Sharon nodded. "And that is a problem. That man's destiny would take us far." The priestess stood up and walked slowly to a small table beside her. She picked up a small wrapped object and handed it to them. "If she will not bring him willingly," the priestess said calmly, "then you must bring him another way." Sharon leaned closer. "How?" "Find a way to get him into your house. When the man enters your house, give him something to drink," the priestess said. "Put this inside it." Annabel looked at the object carefully. "When the drink begins to work," the priestess continued, "one of you must stay in the spiritual place and chant the words I will give you." "And when he falls?" Sharon asked. "Use this," the priestess replied. "Drain his destiny." The 2 women nodded. They thanked the priestess and left the shrine. By the time they got home, they had already begun drafting their plan, and Chelsea knew nothing about it. That night, while Chelsea was asleep, they tiptoed into Chelsea's room. The soft sound of her breathing filled the space. Annabel carefully picked up Chelsea's phone. She opened the contact list, searched for Lawrence's number, copied the number to her phone, and blocked it. "There," she whispered. "Now he can't reach her." They placed the phone back exactly where it had been and quietly left the room. The next morning, Chelsea left the house early. The moment the gate closed behind her, Sharon turned to Annabel. "Call him." Annabel dialed Lawrence's number. A few seconds later, a calm voice answered. "Hello?" Annabel spoke quickly, sounding worried. "Hello. Is this Lawrence?" "Yes. Who is speaking?" "This is Annabel," she replied. "Chelsea's friend." There was a short pause on the line. "Chelsea's friend," Lawrence repeated. "Yes," Sharon quickly added, leaning toward the phone. "We live together with her." Lawrence sounded confused. "Is everything okay?" Annabel forced urgency into her voice. "That's why we're calling. Something is wrong with Chelsea." Lawrence immediately became alert. "What do you mean? What happened to her?" "We don't really understand it ourselves," Sharon said. "She's acting strange, and you are the only person we could call right now." Lawrence's voice grew tense. Is she okay? Where is she now? She's in the house, Annabel replied. Please, can you come? There was no hesitation. I'm on my way, Lawrence said quickly. After the call ended, he tried calling Chelsea, but to no avail. Less than 20 minutes later, Lawrence's car pulled up in front of the house. He stepped out and knocked on the door. Annabel opened it. Yes, I'm Lawrence, he said quickly. You called me about Chelsea. Sharon appeared behind Annabel. Yes, please come in. Lawrence stepped inside, looking worried. Where is she? He asked immediately. Sharon gestured toward the living room. Please sit down first, she said calmly. Lawrence looked at both women, still uneasy. You said she was in trouble. Annabel nodded. We'll explain everything. Lawrence sat on the sofa, his eyes moving from Sharon to Annabel. Something about the situation felt strange. You said Chelsea was in trouble, he said again, his voice tense. Where is she? Sharon forced a small smile. Relax. She stepped out briefly, she replied. Lawrence frowned. Stepped out? But you said she needed help. Annabel quickly stepped in. She did. She wasn't feeling well this morning, so she went to get something from the pharmacy nearby. She should be back soon. Lawrence still looked uneasy. If she stepped out, why did you call me in such a panic? He asked. Sharon sighed as if embarrassed. We were worried. She kept mentioning your name earlier, and we didn't know what was going on. Lawrence leaned back slowly, still confused, but trying to stay calm. All right. I hope she's okay. Annabel nodded and walked toward the kitchen. You look stressed, she said kindly. Let me get you something to drink. That's fine, Lawrence replied quietly. Sharon sat across from him, watching him closely. So, you and Chelsea, she said casually. How long have you known her? Lawrence smiled slightly. Not very long. But you care about her, Sharon added. Lawrence nodded without hesitation. Yes. In the kitchen, Annabel opened a small container and carefully poured its contents into a glass of juice. She stirred it slowly, making sure nothing could be noticed. A few moments later, she returned and handed the glass to Lawrence. Here, she said, drink this. It will help you relax while we wait. And made her way to the room. Lawrence accepted it politely. Thank you. Lawrence held the glass in his hand. He did not drink immediately. Something inside him felt uneasy. Lawrence had grown up in a home where prayer was a daily habit. Even in small moments, he had learned to pause and commit things to God. So before taking the drink, he bowed his head slightly. In his heart, he whispered a silent prayer. He lifted the glass again, but still hesitated. Across the room, Sharon watched him carefully. Lawrence, please relax, she said gently. Chelsea will be back soon. You look very worried. At that moment, Annabel began chanting the strange words the priestess had given them. Her voice was low but steady. Back in the living room, Sharon kept talking and trying to convince Lawrence to take the drink, while in the other room, Annabel continued chanting, waiting for Lawrence to just take the drink. Please, Lawrence, Sharon said gently. You really look stressed. Just drink it and relax. Chelsea will be back very soon, Sharon said with a smile. Lawrence still held the glass in his hand. I'm fine, he replied slowly. Sharon watched him carefully. Minutes were passing, yet the drink remained untouched. Her patience began to wear thin. Inside her mind, frustration started building. Why was he delaying? Lawrence was still holding the drink when his phone suddenly rang. The sharp sound startled him. Quickly, he tried to pull the phone from his pocket. to see who was calling. As he tried to place the glass on the small side stool beside him, his hand slipped. The glass tilted. The drink spilled completely, pouring across the floor. Sharon froze when she saw it. Frustration flashed across her face. Trying to hide her anger, she stood up quickly. "Excuse me," she said stiffly before walking into the inner room. The moment she left, Lawrence felt a strong urge inside him. He bowed his head and began praying seriously. Inside the inner room, Annabel was still chanting the words the priestess had given them. Her voice grew louder as Sharon joined her. They believed the ritual had to work. They had come too far to fail now. But something unexpected was happening in the living room. Lawrence was praying. At first it was quiet. Then his prayer grew stronger. He felt a deep push in his spirit to pray harder. "Lord, every evil plan against my life, scatter it," he prayed. His voice became louder as he continued. Suddenly, Chelsea walked into the house and froze in shock. "Lawrence," she whispered. Before she could move closer, loud screams came from the inner room. Chelsea rushed toward the sound. When she opened the door, she saw Sharon and Annabel on the floor. Their bodies were stiff. They were shaking and crying, as if something invisible was burning them. They could not stand up. They rolled on the floor, screaming in pain. Chelsea panicked. She ran back to the living room. "Lawrence!" she shouted. Lawrence quickly stood up and rushed to her. "Chelsea," he said, holding her shoulders and looking her over in panic. "Are you okay? I heard you were in trouble. Your friends called me and said something was wrong with you." Chelsea looked at him but could not speak. Lawrence continued anxiously. "Are you hurt? What happened? Are you sick?" Chelsea shook her head slowly, tears filling her eyes. "Please, just go," she whispered. Lawrence looked confused. "What do you mean, go? What's happening here? Why are they screaming?" Chelsea wiped her tears. "Please, Lawrence, just leave." Even though he was confused, he could see fear in her face. Slowly, he walked toward the door. Chelsea quickly led him outside. Lawrence turned once more. "Chelsea, are you sure you're okay?" She nodded quickly. "Please go." Lawrence left, still confused about everything that had happened. Chelsea closed the gate and ran back inside. Her heart was beating fast. When she returned to the room, Sharon and Annabel were still lying on the floor. They were unable to stand, their bodies weak and shaking. Chelsea felt helpless. She didn't know what else to do. Suddenly, she remembered the priestess. Without wasting time, she jumped into her car and drove straight to the shrine. When she arrived, she ran inside and explained everything. "The ritual failed," she cried. "I warned them that there was something strange about that young man. Please help them." The priestess listened quietly. Then she shook her head. "I cannot help you." Chelsea froze. "What do you mean you can't help?" The priestess spoke calmly. "That man you tried to destroy carries a power greater than what we do here." Chelsea's heart dropped. "What about my friends?" she asked desperately. The priestess looked away. "That is their fate," she said coldly. "They will die." Chelsea fell to her knees, crying and begging. "Please help them, please." But the priestess remained silent. Chelsea finally stood up and ran back to the car. When she got home, Sharon and Annabel were getting worse. They could barely move. Chelsea sat beside them helplessly. The night passed slowly. The next morning, with tears in her eyes, Chelsea called Lawrence. Her voice was shaking. "Lawrence, I need to tell you something." She confessed everything. The priestess, the rituals, the destruction of men, and their plan to destroy him. You are the reason this happened, she said quietly. There was silence on the other side. Then Lawrence spoke calmly. I'm coming, Chelsea quickly replied. No, it's too late. What can you do? But Lawrence insisted. I'm coming. A short time later, Lawrence arrived at the house again. Chelsea opened the door quietly. Her face was full of guilt. Without saying much, she led him to the room. Sharon and Annabel were still lying there, weak and unable to stand. Lawrence looked at them for a moment. Then he slowly knelt down. He bowed his head and began to pray. Lord, have mercy, he said. His voice grew stronger. Father, forgive them. Show them your mercy. Chelsea stood by the door, crying silently. Lawrence continued praying. Minutes passed, then something changed. Sharon's fingers began to move. Annabel slowly lifted her head. Strength returned to their bodies. Within moments, they were able to sit up. Chelsea gasped in shock. It was a miracle. Sharon and Annabel slowly stood to their feet. Immediately, they fell on their knees, crying. Please forgive us, Sharon said through tears. We were wrong, Annabel cried, but Lawrence gently shook his head. Forgiveness belongs to God, he said. He spoke to them about mercy, grace, and a new life. He asked them one simple question. Do you want to change? Through their tears, the three women nodded. That day, Sharon, Annabel, and Chelsea gave their lives back to God. Their lives began again. Weeks later, something amazing happened. Doors that had once been closed suddenly opened. Each of them received good job opportunities. Their lives slowly began to rebuild the right way. And not long after, Lawrence proposed to Chelsea. She said yes. Their wedding was simple but full of joy. This time, their blessings came without darkness, without stealing, and without fear. Because the greatest destiny anyone can have is a life changed by grace. Quick wealth gained through wrong means may look attractive, but it often brings destruction. True success comes from honesty, faith, and doing what is right. And no matter how far someone has gone in the wrong direction, it is never too late to change and start a new life.
So, besties, what do you think? Do you think Chelsea actually betrayed them? Or was it God wanting to deliver them from the shackles of the enemy? Comment below. And please like, share, and subscribe to African Tales by Chinua. Till next time, bye.